Hello and welcome to Smith Family Gaming. I'm your host Zane, and today we're going to do a little painting video. I've got a Conquest Last Argument of Kings miniature from the Dweghom Fire Berserkers. It's the banner holder and or bannerman, I guess. And I've got most of them painted up, and I'm showed it in one of my last videos a little bit at the end of it, but I'm going to go ahead and try to highlight the metal in different areas, really bringing it out a little bit, and maybe put in some OSL, which we'll talk about a little bit later, about what that actually is. And I've never done that either, and this is really my first time on doing a lot of things with this miniature that I have never done before, considering making fire and something look like fire and OSL and highlighting metal up to the brighter spot so it kind of shines where it needs to shine or whatever. First time trying to do some metal and actually making it look pretty decent without just looking kind of, I just splashed some metallic paint on it and that's fine. So we're going to try that out and we're going to take a look at that. So let's turn the camera around and see what we can get done. Okay, so I've got some paint that I obviously left in my palette for too long, and it has separated. The metallics don't seem to do very well in my palette. It's probably because I keep it really, really moist, and it's because I don't get a paint as often as I like. So I like to keep it nice and wet. That way my paint can last longer. But these metallics, they seem to separate the medium from the, I guess, pigment of the metal pigments on there. But the problem is it doesn't seem like it can ever get it mixed up back to where, I mean, I just had this mixed up like a couple of minutes ago and it's already re-separated. So I just poured out a little bit more. It kind of irks me a little bit because it's a little too thin to really use how I wanted to use it. The colors we got is Thresh 7 scale color thrash metal and heavy metal, a little bit of the brighter one there, and then I have Victorian brass for a little bit because I need just a couple little dabs of it here and there that I want to put on, you know, kind of some bolt areas here. And I have my water, of course, that I keep in here. So what I normally do is my palette doesn't really have any, you know, I made sure that the water was not just, you know, little spots of water on here, but then I go ahead and I add some spots of water, and I normally add them just like that. Well, that might be a little much on the Victorian brass, but we won't use quite so much. So I put my little dots of water on my palette there so I can go ahead and drag a little bit over there to that area where I want a little bit of paint and say, okay, over here. And what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to go with this thrash metal. I'm using a number 2, by the way. Not that it really matters. Alright, so see, I've got about 3 different kinds of wetnesses here. Really wet, a little bit wetter, straight. Okay, so what I did was I went ahead and I put a layer of black metal over the entire metal parts of the, you know, all the metal parts. And then I went ahead and I put wash on it of dark wash. I think it's called dark wash. Let's see here. Dark tone from Army Painter. I do like their washes. And it worked out good how I wanted it to do here. Got some darker recesses up in the little thing here, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. And then I went back over it with thrash metal in areas where I wanted it to be a little bit brighter, and then the very brightest points like here, I'm not sure if you can see that, but I already did go ahead and put a little bit of the heavy metal on top of that to really brighten out the brightest spots that I wanted to be bright on, that when you're moving them around, those are the ones that are going to really catch the light. And I did that a little bit on here too. I didn't do it exactly like I wanted to, but that's all right. Here's where I need my Victorian brass, is on these little nuts or bolts or whatever they are, and a couple other places I think. But my plan is to go ahead and use some of that thin down thrash metal first and get some of the spots where I want it to be a little bit brighter here and there, and then go in with the heavy metal and make those last areas that bit of brighter. And so I think for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on this, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that, and then I'm probably going to turn on my music and turn off the camera, so you'll get kind of an idea of what I did. You won't have to listen to me ramble. I can actually listen to my music, and we can go over some of my processes at the end. Most likely it's just going to be kind of, well, how does that look? One other thing that I don't know if I'll get to tonight, because I'm going to try to get all this done first, was OSL, which is Object Source Lighting. And so that would be like, I had to look that up because I'm not real bright and I've forgotten what it was. So it would be basically like the fire here. Okay. All right. So fire gives off light. So everything around it is going to be kind of in that tone. So let's say we've got, you know, this metal here should be kind of a yellowish orange because it's so close to the fire, maybe, or something on those lines there. Maybe even his skin over here close to his fire hair, whatever, might need a little bit of, you know, yellow on it too. I don't know. It'll be the first time I've ever done anything like that, so I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to do that at all. I'm going to take a look and see what I think of it and the final outcome, see if I like the way it is or if he does need the OSL. So let me get to it for a little bit, and then we'll turn the camera off, and you guys can not have to listen to me ramble, and I won't have a really long video. What I'm going to do here first is I'm taking that little bit of thrash metal. Got my paper towel, my handy dandy paper towel. I'm going to wick just a hair bit off of it. In my previous video on instant colors, I talked about how I tend to wick off a lot of my paint anyway. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get all these little ribs on this handle of his banner kind of in the thrash metal, but try to keep it out of the real deep groove up at the top of it. So, you know, basically the light's shining down on him, and so this part will be light, but the top, obviously where it's got a little bit of dip in it, would not be. So we're going with that, and I'm just kind of being rather generous on it and not trying to overdo it at all. And then my next plan will be to go ahead and add a little bit of the heavy metal just on the lowest point of these highlights that I'm putting on. That way it'll really kind of pop a little bit better. Hopefully, or at least that's the idea. We'll see how well that turns out. I obviously did not do as good of a job as I would have liked on the mold line removal process on this, because there's a mold line all the way down this banner on the handle. I did get it pretty decent off of his fingers, but I didn't get it off of this banner pole or stick, which is kind of disappointing because then it kind of leaves a nice little straight line. Like I said, most people probably ain't going to notice it, but I will, and it's going to drive me bonkers for the rest of my life. And so I'm also going to do the backside, but over here where his arm is in the way, down below, I'm not going to do it. because in the shadow of it, if I stand them up like this, you can't even see that part, and it's also in the shadow. So we're not going to worry about that at all. I'm not even going to highlight that at all. Same thing when I come back over here on the underside of this. I'm not going to highlight that. Oh, I'm sorry. Underside of this. I'm not even going to highlight that because there's no need to. There's never any time that it's going to come. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come about halfway down maybe with this thrash metal. And then I'll come back with just a fine little spot of the heavy metal to really brighten it up a little bit. Now remember to, if you kind of like my videos or whatever, remember to share and like and subscribe, or don't. I do want the channel to grow. I do hope that I'm helping people, at least a little bit, you know. Maybe not, but I like to think that I'm helping out somebody, maybe, hopefully. And you can learn a little bit here. Because that's my main goal, is to get more people into the hobby, so that the people who are making games and paint supplies and all this other stuff keep making great products so that I can use it. So I'm using you to help myself out. I guess you could look at it that way. But, or you can look at it the nice way. Okay, so we went ahead and we got that all the way up. There is kind of a bead where they come up and touch. And I think I'm just going to go ahead and use a little bit of that heavy metal and just get each one of those just a little teeny dot. And I got this pretty thinned out. So it shouldn't be like over, you know, too much when it dries. Because sometimes when it goes, you can go too much really quickly. So we're just going to go a little bit on there. It's just a tad bit. We're going to go over on the opposite side, do the same thing. This time I'll start at the bottom. Ooh, trickery. So what I'm going to do here, now that I've done that along both sides like I'd said, I'm going to go ahead and get, you know, a pretty good full brush. Get my nice point on this number 2, if I can ever get it. Wick a little bit off. And then I'm going to come over and I'm just going to do just the very bottom of this with just a little bit of that heavy metal. And maybe not even go all the way to the center point where it's super easy to see where the center point is, because I didn't get that mold line off and it looks terrible. I'll do this other side too. So we'll do it kind of more towards the bottomest area and towards the outside. In all actuality, if the mold line was there or wasn't there, that would be the point that I'd be trying to make the most brightest, because that'd be where they, you know, it'd be kind of a rounded area instead. So, but I screwed up, so and I'm not fixing it now. I think I can live with it, possibly, or I'm going to hate myself for the rest of my life, one or the other. So we'll see. But okay, so I don't know if you guys can see that. We'll try to bring it up. Well, I guess, yeah. When I move that baby around, you can really see that it shines a little bit. And it does shine a little bit, but it isn't, even when it does, I mean, it looks like on the camera that it's like super shiny, but really out here where it's at, you don't really see it quite, you know, when he's standing up like he's meant to, you don't really see that shine like it, you know, you do when the light is catching it here. But it did really brighten it up. Those highlights, the camera isn't really doing it justice. You are actually seeing a lot of my mold line issue I've got there. because once you get to that center point, it is quite a bit darker. So maybe I should have went ahead and went over that just a little bit. But I think it's turning out all right. That's kind of a small area to do. Like I said, first time kind of trying to do this here anyway. So I think he looks pretty sharp. We're going to continue. I'm going to turn on some music and go to town here, hopefully, and get quite a bit done. And periodically, you know, show you some updates on it and everything else. Alright, so here's what I've accomplished while I had the camera off. I did highlight quite a bit of that. I don't know how well he is showing up for you. I think he looks pretty good. I don't really have time to do the OSLs tonight. I also did put on those little bit of Victorian brass on the banner there, both sides. But I think he looks pretty good. What I do need to fix up here, and it kind of looks like, but doesn't look good enough to me. It's supposed to look kind of like flames or a furnace almost burning on the inside of them, and fire coming out of them. And I think I need to get a little bit more yellow in there. It's definitely a much orangey color, but I think I could use a little bit yellow, and I think some OSL along the edges here, you know, to really bring it out and make it look like, you know, it is a furnace just burning inside of him and he's just consumed with fire. That is really what I'm trying to go for here, and do some OSL on his you know, his banner up here, and like I said, down around up on his helmet here and there and everything else. But for tonight, we're going to call that he's done. So this video might take a few times to do it, lots of editing and everything else. Might have some videos in between me actually getting this one finished and posted.